So here's what we're going to be working on. We have some pipes that were put in quite a while ago. There's some different fitting types that really aren't my choice for sure. So we're going to get rid of all of this old stuff. We're going to put in new PEX connectors if you go all the way down toward the bottom. We're also going to take that breakout and then those old switches, and we're going to put in new valves all the way through. We'll get started here. First, we're going to check out what we need. We have some parts that we're going to be using. Now we're going to be doing a mix of PEX and the compression fit or the shark bites. So we have our PEX half-inch clips. We have a couple of press-in valves. As you can see on these, they're half-inch on both sides. And we'll be able to just press that onto the old pipe and then put the new PEX into it. We also have new cold and hot valves for the washing machine. We have our long piece of half-inch PEX that will cut to shape. We also over here have a couple of flex connectors. Now these do say half-inch on them, supply hose, and I suspect that, yeah, with water in accessible areas only, we're going to use them in the wall. And so this is a fixed part, and the reason I'm using a flex piece is because in the wall that pipe isn't terribly straight coming out of the floor, and so to line it up properly I want to have some play in that line so we don't put stress on those quick locks. We also have, these are called polybutylene tube liners. This house has that polybutylene piping in it, and so to strengthen it, to make sure we don't have any problems in the future, we're going to put these pipe liners in as well, just to make sure everything is good. So now we kind of have our parts. I'll also show you our tools. And here's going to be the tools that we use. We have our PEX crimper, we have our cutter for the PEX, we have a set of channel locks. We also use a screwdriver potentially, and just maybe a measuring tape or two, although we'll eyeball most of it with the flex pipe. If we go back over here just for a minute, we can see everything is still the same on the wall, but you can see also where we're going to work. We're going to cut down below the old valves, and so we haven't turned the water off yet. We're going to do that after we've kind of dry fit everything, make sure everything's the right lengths that we want to work on. Then we can turn off the water and interrupt water only for a short while. So let's go ahead and do some dry fitting. Okay, and then we've got a couple of short pieces to start with here. These two pieces we're going to use to go from our straight valve here, which will be on the old piping, the polybutylene, into the valve, and then we'll have a short piece here, and that short piece will go into our connecting system here, this flex pipe. We'll run these kind of into the wall just to see how long they'll need to be. We'll cut some similar to this and plug them into the hot and the cold valves for the washing machine, because they have a PEX fitting on the bottom of them. We don't know how long to cut those yet, because we don't want these to be really too long and we end up like curling it in the wall and putting stress on it. We want it to be pretty straight, so we'll see how it all fits together first, and then we'll make our cuts up above for these guys right here. So we'll go ahead and get those parts cut. I just wanted to show everybody this. It's a little hard to see. I'll see if I can get some better lighting, but if you look down in there's a little tiny piece of rubber or something in there. It looks kind of waxy. That is loose, and so when you're taking these parts out, you kind of want to rotate them, check them. Again, part of the dry fit process, you just want to make sure everything opens and closes properly. So you can see it opening, and if you look, that piece is still hanging out in there. So we don't want that to cause an issue, so we're going to clean that out, and we'll do the same on the other valve as we take it out. We're going to see if we can show you one-handed how you put one of these, what we call aqua locks. These are from Menards, but I'm sure you can get them other places. They're from Watts. They're a little bit like shark bites, and they're just a little bit different action. They have their own release clip built in. They don't have a separate tool. So I'll kind of show you with this little piece again how they work, and you get the idea. So I've read the instructions. You put the reinforcer in here, and the idea is just to give it a nice solid place to bite on. And you can see it goes over the edge of the tube. It doesn't go into it all the way, and there's a nice slip, and this is where you want to make sure that your pipe is cut pretty square, so it has something good to grab onto. So next, you take your tube, or your valve rather, kind of make sure everything looks clean in it. And then what you are doing is you put your fitting in, kind of center it up, square it up as best you can. You see it's wobbling because it hasn't been seated. And then I'm using the floor, but obviously you can use two hands. You just kind of press. You can kind of bottom it out, and there it shows. So now it's nice and clean and straight. It's in there. And with this particular product, you have a retaining clip. It's got a little kind of foot on it. And the idea here is that you put this onto the clip surrounding it like that. That locks it in so it can't release. So we got one on this side, and we also did the other one. So we have a pair of them. And from here, we'll have our long flex tube. It'll go from here, and you can kind of see it'll go up. We'll cut a couple more pieces of PEX, and then those will go right in to these here. And these are PEX connectors, so we'll put these on last, and we'll show you how the PEX connects to it. Next, we're going to take and just dry fit this so you can get an idea what this is going to look like. Here we go. So pretty hefty. I have a red and a blue, so you get your hot and cold indicators. They have, you know, little open and shut symbols on them. And if you look on the bottom, there's thread, but that thread is not for pipe. That thread is just for the collar that you're going to put into the wall. But you can see 1/2 inch PEX that will PEX crimp into, and then we'll make that connection the length we need it to. So then when we come into the other side, we'll have a piece of PEX here. That's the right length to get us into the wall. So we'll just kind of show you if we dry fit it in. Kind of the idea behind it. Obviously it's not plumbed in or anything, but we'll have a hot and a cold, and we'll kind of get those locked into place to get our heights right. So that's what we'll do next. I should probably point out, when we do this too, we're going to need to take these old washer pipes off for the washing machine. So obviously we'll do that over a bucket. Hopefully this will relieve a lot of the water in the system. Again, not a lot in there, but it doesn't take a lot to kind of ruin the moment. So we'll get that cleaned off. Do the same for cold water. Drain it down a bit. Looks good. Now we're going to be replacing this washing machine, of course. So they recommend replacing your tubes or your pipe, flexible pipe to the washing machine. Ours was replaced about a year ago, so I did an inspection of it. Everything is clean, the seals are real good. We're going to continue to use these a second time. So follow your manufacturer instructions. We chose not to do that because, again, these are 1 year old, and we're confident that the seals are still good. So I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way. We'll cut our pipes, and we'll start cleaning up a little bit of water, and then we'll put in our new press fits. So we've got the water turned off. We've opened it, flushed the toilet, and tried to get the water as low as we can, and realizing that it's not going to be perfect, we're going to make a bit of a mess. If you can kind of look in the wall, this is kind of a huge mess in the past. When we bought the house, we didn't know that this had a slow leak that the last owner decided a towel down here was the fix. That's not the fix. Please don't do that. This is a manufactured home, and so the floor is not directly lined up with the wall joists because they don't actually load there, and so it's hard to tell, but that 2x4 down there has kind of sunk into the floor. So when we remodel this room in another video, we'll end up having to do some, well, cutting some of this warped wood out. We won't be able to fix this, but we'll be able to bolster it as best we can. We've already done it on the other side in the bathroom, so that's what we'll do. Now we're going to make a bit of a mess. We already know that, so we got our towel here. And we'll go ahead and see if we can cut this pipe as cleanly, and I do mean cleanly, as possible. So we'll go ahead and do that next. Okay, we kind of got a makeshift tripod set up. We're going to go ahead now We'll cut our cold water line first and then our hot water. One thing I did notice as we're looking here, not a good sign. We have a cutoff valve for the hot or the cold, but there's nothing in the hot. So the only way to turn the hot off is all the way at the top. And while it's not necessary, I do like to have a secondary cut. That way we have a little more control if we need to do something up top without shutting down the whole water system again. So we'll cut that first line. Again, it's going to make a bit of a drip as it drains out, but one time hopefully we'll be ready to go. So we'll cut the cold first. And there's our mess. There's our pipe dripping up and falling down. That's the cold water one done. Not too bad. Still kind of pouring out though. Not so happy about that. Let's go ahead and shut that off by pressing it in. And you might have noticed I completely forgot to put in my little aqua lock. So we'll do that real quick. Do this again. Now again, these are polybutylene, so they're a little bit different shape and size, diameter, that fits on these gray pipes, which are not PVC and they are not hex. So we want to have just a little bit of rigidity in them so we don't have a break or a leak. And again, really wished I would remember to put that on. Oh man. Sometimes the best is just kind of ease it up. Sometimes. Again, I don't have the expansion or the clip in, so it should be something where I push it down and then just kind of lift it off. Oh. There it goes. I can feel the water leaking everywhere, so I suppose that's a good sign. I'm hoping we'll drain it here. Believe it or not, it seems like it is. Oh. There it slides, there it slides, okay. And so now, again, we put our expansion in. Now we push it down. Now it's in there for sure. And we put our little clip in. Actually hit the line, not just pretend. There we go. Now that is sealed. We'll just dab dry it here. Make sure it looks good. I don't see any water leaking. Pretty happy with that. Okay, now that the cold water is on, or should I say off, we'll go ahead and do the same for the hot water. And for this one, what I'll do first is I'll turn it off first. And I'll make sure I grab my tube. So hopefully we do this a little bit faster and a little less mess. So same thing, pipes right here. Not a lot of room to work in here. We'll do our cut. I'm sorry I'm blocking the camera, but we do our cut here. There it goes. This one doesn't have nearly the water pressure on it because there's not a lot of lines compared to the cold water in there. So we'll plug that in all the way down. Done. Put in our clip. And that's how fast it really should be. Shouldn't have this problem unless you make a mistake like I did. I forgot to put your little collar on. So now that that's done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a permanent marker. I'm going to just mark a C and an H so I know next time I'm in the wall, which is the hot, which is the cold. These pipes are labeled with like a black and a red, but a little lettering isn't going to hurt anything either. So we'll go ahead and get that done. Alright, so we got a C and an H written on our pipes. We kind of dry fit, or not dry fit, we kind of dried off our pipes a little bit so we can see when, if we have a problem. What we'll do now is we'll turn back on the water pressure and we'll see if we have any leaks at the valve, kind of at our first point, and we can get everybody else in the house water again. So it's just right behind me. I'll go ahead and do that. We'll check and see if we have any leaks. All right, turn the water back on. Looks pretty good. No problems other than tetanus, apparently. Yeah, that needs to be fixed. So now what we'll do here, you know we're getting water because our pressure switch just switched on for the pump, so that's good. So now what we'll do is we'll kind of get an idea how much flex pipe we need to get up the wall. One of these guys, remember? We'll plug that in and we'll go ahead and make sure that we're more or less in the ballpark for where we need to be when we plumb that up here. And so we'll put that flex pipe in and then we'll get an idea how long of a PEX cut we'll make off of our valves up there. So we'll put those two flexes in, see what we get. So we've got our two flexes sealed on the bottom and we'll push everything together again when we're done, but it looks pretty good. And we've got both pipes coming up back behind the P-trap. Now I was going to change the P-trap out because this was the problem, remember, from the leaking. But honestly, it's dry. It hasn't dripped. Any water down there is my fault tonight. So we're going to leave the P-trap as is. If you've got no problem, if you don't have a plumbing problem, don't start. You might end up with one. So now we go up here. This is the hot, this is the cold. And we can kind of see here now, we really only have a few inches to go. So what we'll do, and you can see it's real nice where it's a little flexible, it can make that trip up without putting stress on it. So what we'll do is we'll put the hot and the cold valves in. We'll get a real close idea of how much to cut. We'll cut, then we'll get everything put together. So we'll do that step next. So now we have our hot and our cold valves temped in. We've got to get an idea. We can move it into place and we can see it's not very far at all. We don't want to miss it by an inch. We also don't want to go over an inch. So what I'll do is I'm going to put the phone down. I'm going to grab some of that longer PEX piece. I will use a permanent marker. We'll get an idea of pretty much how much we want, remembering that on the PEX we do need to crimp it up there. So I have to put it on those and then drop them down. And then there's about a ½ inch or so, or whatever the spec is, in this tube. So we don't want to cut it just a little short. It's a little bit long is okay because we can flex the pipe. A little bit short will be a problem. So we'll go ahead and we'll cut both of these and kind of fit them and make sure that both of them match. Be right back. So we got our two pieces cut kind of into our lengths that we want. So this PEX really isn't gonna hang on there too well because there's nothing to hold it on. Yep. Because it's not crimped yet. Maybe this side will hold a little better. Nope, okay. But you'll get the idea with the hot. So we've got it, again, I cut it a little long. So again, once I push it in, it won't be under stress. And the nice thing is too, we will crimp it off the housing. So we'll take this out, crimp it, and then put it in. We'll put our collar on, and we don't have to tighten it in, but we'll give ourselves a little play so that we can plug this in and without straining any of the connectors. So I'll go ahead and I'll take both of those valves back out. We'll put on our crimp PEX pieces. I'll show you how that's done, and we'll put them back in and kind of snug everything together. So we'll get that done. So we're going to go ahead and crimp these on. If you haven't used these before, these are the PEX crimps. So you need a good enough PEX crimper like this guy. And what you'll do is you'll take your clip and you'll put it on, slide it down, and if you look, There's quite a bit of distance there, and you don't want to get it too low. This is too low right now, but you don't want to get it too high. So too low, it's only going to catch on the bottom and it may not make a solid full crimp down. Too high, you only catch the top, and there's no guarantee again that you'll make a good connection. So you kind of want to eyeball it down. There's a spec to it. I couldn't tell you what it is. It says clamp between 1/8 and 1/4 of tube end. And again, tube must be cut square, so you can see the same thing I'm talking about, where it says 1/8 to 1/4, and that's 1/8 to 1/4 right there. And if you plug them up next to each other, you can see it's hitting right about center in that piece. So we'll go ahead and we'll crimp both of those down. I'll show you what they look like to crimp here. Turn it around. This particular style has that kind of catch. So you take your tool, and this is going to be real tricky one-handed. You take your tool like that. Now that crimper, you've got a spot that matches that it almost looks like a diamond in a ring, but it fits right in there. Come on, focus. There you go. It fits right in there, and then you're going to be crimping down these two pieces closer together, which, if you can see, it creates a curl in this metal, and around the whole side it tightens it down. It's not just like a crimp on one side, it tightens the whole circle. So that's what we're looking for. So we'll tighten that down. It takes a lot of torque. It's hard to do one-handed, and you can't release it early because the tool isn't going to unlatch until you hit your pressure you need. So you're just going to keep going. Okay, now it's released, and what you can see I caught a piece of carpet in it. There we go. What you can see is that now it's almost squished that PEX pipe down, and it's really bit in there. So it's really holding on there, and it won't come out. Now, it's interesting enough, you can twist this sometimes, but that seal is still good. You can see down there, it's flared, but it's flared after the end of the tube, which means that I caught it not at the end of the tube, but right there on the ribs, which is a good connection. So not too close, not too far. Nice seal all the way around. This isn't going to leak. This is ready. We'll do the next one, and then we'll get everything temped in. I'll be right back. Here's a fun thing that I just figured out. Should have thought about it. These collars are in no way, shape, or form going to go around this fitting. So we're going to have to cut this fitting off, which you can do with a pair of pliers and a sharp knife. You can cut this PEX off. Keep this fine. We lose this collar, but they're in a 10 pack. I only need 2. What we'll have to do is we'll cut a new piece here. We'll put the collar on, and that means this is going to have to be in the wall when we crimp it. So that'll be a little bit trickier. We're not going to be able to show that with one hand. So I'll go ahead and I'll cut that off, and I'll prep both this and the hot and the cold on the wall, and then prep for the next step. So I'll be back in a bit. Alright, wanted to give you a little update here. So when you take these collars PEX off, there's a little clip here, and that's actually folded over. You need to straighten it out like it is now, and then see how it was in that. You got to take a pair of pliers or a screwdriver or something carefully and prise that part up, this big tab. Once you prise it up, it'll release the pressure, and you can see it spins, and we can even, with a little bit of gentle pushing, push it right off that fitting now. Gentle being relative. So get that opened up enough so it can go off. There you go. And now all you have to do is, you can see how that plastic's been deformed. And that's how you get that wonderful seal on a PEX. It's all the way around nice and even, so you can see it worked great. You can see the marks where the different parts came together. But that means we have to cut this piece of PEX off the tube underneath so we can reuse the fitting, which is really nice about the metal PEX pieces. If you make a mistake, you don't have to throw it away and buy a new one. All you have to do is replace a piece of really cheap PEX and one crimp, and you can keep the fitting. And that's what we're going to do here. So I'll be back in a bit. Now we're back. And we got those crimped on, so we can see we're crimped. We've got our collars on, but they're very, very loose. Have not crimped them or tightened them down at all. And honestly, they're going to be hand tightened anyway, so it's not the end of the world. Now I have my drain valve, or my drain pipe, kind of in the way. The way it was done before, it was all down here, wasn't in the way. I'm not going to redo all this. I'll just move my pipe a little bit off to the side, so then I can just get it right through without having to do anything different. So what I'll do now is I'll press in these while I've got my flex in the pipe. We'll do that for the hot and the cold, making sure I have the hot match hot. Yep. We'll get everything all connected up, and then we'll be back. Yeah, very good, very good. All right, so we push these in. They're very solid in there now. You really want to push from both sides together. You don't want to just push into one direction, it might buckle. So once you've got that really pushed in, you can kind of then square this up. That's what we'll do. We'll just kind of hand tighten it in, but get it pretty good right into there. So, we'll get these tightened in. It shouldn't take too long. This is only a plastic ring holding it in, so this isn't going to be rock solid no matter what you do. So there's no reason to strain and stress it. Just kind of get it kind of the way you want it. Nobody's going to be manipulating these on a daily basis. It sure looks better than just a couple of pipes coming out of a piece of plywood on below though. So that's our goal here, making it look a little more professional. All right, so those are loosely tightened. We'll probably get them nice and square to each other. But what we'll do now is I'll tighten them a little bit further down. I'll recheck all my fittings, and then we will turn on the water down here after, of course, making sure these valves are off, and we'll just check our connections all the way through. And then if that's all good, we'll be in good shape. We'll be able to plug in our new washing machine to the new valves, have everything nice and clean. So we'll get this tightened up, and we'll try turning on the water. All right. So now, again, these aren't square in the wall, and they're not going to be because the pipes really do have a bit of a twist and a turn in them. But being flexible, they'll take that load and keep the stress off the fittings, which is perfect. So we've closed our ball valves. Everything looks off. We'll come down here. We'll turn on the cold. You can hear that cold kick in. Here goes the hot. Hot's in now. And really what you're doing is you're just going to observe. Whoops. We're going to observe. We're going to see, do we see any pinhole leaks? Do we see any drips? Do we see anything that looks for concern? And then just kind of, once we're satisfied that everything feels right, there's no wet anywhere on any of these fittings. Oops, you can't see what I'm doing. No wet down here. No wet. These are still dry. These are dry way down here. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. And so now the only thing left to do is we could really plug a pipe in and we could test these, but I could hear the water in the pipe, so I know I'm good. So our next step is going to be, we'll put the panel back on the wall, we'll clean up our mess, and then we'll look at seeing how the pipes, the tubes, the pipes, plug into those like we expect, and we'll put a little plumber's tape on them because that will be metal on metal. And I always put a little plumber's tape on that. So we're just about done. Okay, I just wanted to give you a video here, kind of showing the final results, minus the wiring here. So the new valves are in, everything's snugged in. It's a little loose on the wall, but it should be, because there's not a lot to hold it in place. As you can see, where the old wall, or where the water lines used to come out of the wall right there, we'll be able to replace this piece of plywood when we redo the whole laundry room. Have some nice professional looking valves installed, drain pipe extension, and we just get to plug in all the new stuff to the washer. Now, like I mentioned, I'm going to use some tape on the metal to metal connectors, but you do not use tape on the plastic side. So it's metal to plastic, and then metal plastic, or metal and the tape. So I'll get all those plumbed up and we'll be all done with this project. So pretty good. Took about 90 minutes altogether, and that was me working a little slow. So I hope you enjoyed, and we'll show you a little bit of the video here once everything's plumbed in.